For the last couple of years, one of my main goals has been to visit and make a video on all of the 63 United States national parks. I completed the first 32 of these parks with a recent trip to Shenandoah, and I thought it would be fun to rank them based on my experience in each of the parks. Again, these rankings are just based on my time exploring the park and some of the parks I've spent more time at than others. Also, there are some notable parks missing, like Yellowstone. I only count the park visited if I've made a video on it, and I haven't been to Yellowstone in years, so it and others were left off of this list. Before starting the list, I understand how subjective and hard it is to pick between these amazing places. These choices are based on nothing but my personal experiences there, and don't leave this video before sharing your top 5 national parks in the comments. Let's jump into it. Starting out with park number 32, we have Gateway Arch National Park. This park in St. Louis is not a bad spot, and it has interesting history, but for me the elevator is pretty claustrophobic and it's probably only something I would do once. You can walk all around the grounds, take in different views from the arch, and then go to the top and look through the tiny windows. It's a fun and quick stop with some good views, but this is the last on the list currently for me. For number 31, we have Great Basin National Park. I went to Great Basin at the end of my Loneliest road trip. I only had a chance to visit the ancient bristlecone pine forest while I was there. The hike to the forest was beautiful, and it's always awesome to see these trees, but I didn't really get to do much else while I was there, and the park is pretty remote. The drive up to the trailhead was nice with lots of great views, and I hope to hike Wheeler Peak in the future. Plus, I think there's some caves you can do as well, so I'm sure this will probably move up if I spend more time there. Park number 30 is Biscayne National Park. Biscayne was one of the 3 I visited during my Florida road trip. We took a 4-hour boat ride that took us around to different lighthouses in the park and let us get out on one of the islands to do a short hike. I thought it was an excellent tour, but I think the best way to experience this park is probably to snorkel or scuba dive. If you're above water, you miss out on a lot of the park's best features, but I still loved seeing the historic lighthouses. Number 29 is Hot Springs National Park. Hot Springs is not a traditional park, as it's more focused on the historic baths and the natural beauty. I enjoyed my time exploring the park, and the visitor center here is one of the best preserved museums I've been to. It's probably not one of those parks you'd come back to again and again, but if you spend 24 hours there, I'm sure you'll enjoy it. Be sure to walk Bathhouse Row, go on a couple short hikes, and go up to the top of the tower. Next up, number 28 is Pinnacles National Park. As this list continues on, it gets harder and harder to rank these parks. For example, I love Pinnacles National Park and I've spent a lot of time there hiking and exploring the caves. For me though, it still does get trumped by the other amazing national parks in California, but it's still well worth the visit. My favorite spot to explore is the Bear Gulch Cave, but you can walk up to the reservoir and all the way to the high peaks if you want to have an awesome day hike. Number 27 is Kenai Fjords National Park. This is another park where I only got to experience a little bit of it. There's only one area you can access via car, and that's the hike to Exit Glacier, but it is an amazing hike. It's a pretty short experience, but there's lots of great views of the glacier as you head up. The best way to experience this park is via a boat tour, and I hope to go back and do that in the future, as I'm sure it would move up the list if I did. Let me know if you've done the boat tour here and how it is in the comments. Number 26 is Kings Canyon National Park. Kings Canyon is a beautiful natural area in Central California. The scenic drive down into the canyon is one of my favorite drives in the entire state. As you begin the drive by passing massive redwood trees like General Grant, you'll start to descend all the way down until you're driving alongside a creek. The park also has an amazing cave to explore and hundreds of miles of backcountry trails. It's well worth the effort to get to, but you can only really visit in the summer. Number 25 is Capitol Reef National Park. Capitol Reef is a place I've only got to experience once, but it was amazing to explore. The park has a little bit of everything with a nice scenic drive, hikes to arches, and a historic district that you can walk around. I'd love to go back when they're selling pies and when the fruit is in season, as picking it is a really fun aspect of the park. It's a stunning natural area, but it's the lowest on the list of national parks in Utah for me. Number 24 is Shenandoah National Park. Shenandoah is the one I visited right after driving the Blue Ridge Parkway. I loved this park because it felt like an extension of our road trip, which I had a great time on. The 100-mile Skyline Drive has overlooks, tons of hiking trails, and even some waterfalls you can see. We only spent one really busy day there, but it would probably move up the list if I spent more time exploring it. Number 23 is Saguaro National Park. Don't go here in the heat of the summer, but this park is incredibly unique. I love desert parks and how different they are from their forest brethren. The cacti here is just something you never see, and being able to see such a large concentration of them all over the park's trails is a fantastic experience. I spent 2 days hiking and driving through the park, and I have to say that sunset there is one of the best I've ever seen in a national park. Number 22 is Canyonlands National Park. Canyonlands is so unlike the rest of the Utah parks that I instantly fell in love with it. The park has 3 districts and I've only been to 2 out of the 3. The Island in the Sky district is my favorite, as the whole park is basically up on a cliff overlooking a canyon that just stretches out as far as you can see in front of you. The hiking here feels very rugged along the cliff's edge, and the upheaval dome area adds a diversity to the park's landscape. Number 21 is Petrified Forest National Park. Like Canyonlands, this park is also incredibly unique. The park has an uncountable amount of petrified wood, and in some sections the pieces of wood stretch out all the way to the horizon. The park also has amazing geology with viewpoints that look out over colorful formations. Lastly, it's the only park that Route 66 ran through, and it has a small exhibit about the road in the park. You can easily see all of it in one day, and I really enjoyed my time here. Number 20 is White Sands National Park. I didn't know what to expect when I visited White Sands, but I ended up loving the park for a few reasons. One, the white sand is a perfect contrast to the sky for photography. Second, the sunset I saw there was one of the best I've ever seen, and it was a true photographer's playground. Lastly, you can also rent a sled and go sledding in the sand. This addition by itself is pretty hard to beat, and it makes for a fun day in the park if you're exploring with a family. Number 19 is Everglades National Park. Everglades is a park that you really have to understand in order to love. The park's subtle elevation changes lead to amazing diversity in the plant and animal life, and it has some of the best wildlife viewing areas in the continental United States. We saw dozens of alligators on our visit, along with a few manatees and many different types of birds. The Shark Valley Tram Tour was the highlight here for me, but this is a park I would love to go back to. Number 18 is Death Valley National Park. Death Valley is the hottest place on earth and is a desolate park that you need many days to experience. The park has the lowest point in North America and an over 10,000 foot peak that it looks up at. These extreme elevation changes give the park so many different adventures that you can have there. I've been many times and I've seen the park in both the summer and the winter. It's a special place, but take the time to really appreciate it if you go. Number 17 is Mammoth Cave National Park. Mammoth Cave is the world's longest known cave system, with over 400 miles explored and potentially at least another 400 unexplored. I love caves, and the main cave tour here feels more adventurous than most. You have to descend down into the cave, go through an area called Fat Man's Misery, and then climb the stairs to get out. We did it in the winter, and there were even icicles hanging on the cave entrance. It's just a really cool national park to explore. Park number 16 is Sequoia National Park. Attached to Kings Canyon, Sequoia National Park has the world's largest tree, known as the General Sherman. Just hiking to see the tree by itself is worth the visit to the park. Luckily, the park also has tons more amazing adventures like the Morro Rock hike, exploring Crystal Cave, and even seeing some of the waterfalls. It's a park I keep going back to, and I'm never not in awe of these massive trees. Number 15 is Glacier National Park. I think Glacier would probably be higher up on my list if I got to spend more time there, but unfortunately we only had one day to explore, and the weather turned on us when we were halfway through the Going to the Sun road. Still, the first day of exploring was enough for me to want to go back and spend a lot more time there. The massive mountains and valleys with incredible lakes and lots of hiking trails is an easy top national park for me. Number 14 is Channel Islands National Park. The Channel Islands take more work to get to than a lot of the parks in this list, but I've been to 3 of the islands and I've had some amazing experiences there. The islands are rugged and remote and only accessible by a boat, but if you like to camp, then you should really plan a night camping on Santa Cruz Island. There's lots of different hiking trails there, and you can basically have many of the beaches to yourself. If you don't want to camp, a half-day trip to Anacapa is also great, as seeing Inspiration Point is something you'll never forget, and it's one of the best views in California. Number 13 is Lassen Volcanic National Park. Lassen Volcanic is one of the least visited parks in California, but a personal favorite of mine. This park has a geothermal area known as Bumpus Hell, a volcanic peak you can climb, and some stunning lakes, just to name a few of its attractions. The park is an adventurous paradise with many different experiences you can have. I would plan for more than a day though, as it's big and some of the best areas are not on the Central Drive. Number 12 is Big Bend National Park. Big Bend is a difficult park to get to as it's not really close to any major city. The park is also massive with many different areas to explore and both a mountain range and a desert ecosystem. By hiking many of the park's trails and driving the scenic road to the mouth of Santa Elena Canyon, I was blown away by the beauty of this park and I can't wait to go back and spend 3 to 4 days in the future. Number 11 is Redwood National Park. Some people might not agree with me on this one, but I love this park and I feel like the natural beauty and the remoteness of the area create some truly stunning experiences. Places like Fern Canyon and the Tall Trees Grove are things I've come back to time and time again, and the amount of time I've driven through the park and seen herds of elk along the side of the road is something I'll never forget. It's a spread out park and I recommend doing a lot of research to make the most of it, but if you have a chance to spend a few days driving and hiking there, I'm sure you won't regret it. To start the top 10, I picked Dry Tortugas National Park. This is one of those parks that takes planning to get to, but the whole experience was just really cool. It's about a 2-hour boat ride from Key West each way, and as you cross the open ocean, you'll eventually arrive at this massive brick fort situated on a small island. Being able to climb and explore the fort's rich history is an awesome experience, plus you can sit on the beach and snorkel while you're there. It takes an entire day to experience, but it's a very unique park and one of the most beautiful areas in southern Florida. Number 9 is Great Smoky Mountains National Park. I have a love-hate relationship with Great Smoky Mountains. I love how beautiful it is and how many amazing experiences there are to have here, but it's tough to visit because it's so busy. If you go during a holiday or in the summer, it's often difficult to park at most of the main attractions, and Cades Cove can take hours to get through. Even with all of that though, the park is still in my top 10 as it's just so beautiful. The park has hundreds of miles of hiking trails, many stunning waterfalls, plus history and wildlife. Bring your patience and I'm sure you'll love it like I do. Number 8 is Bryce Canyon National Park. Bryce is one of those places you'll never forget when you visit. The Bryce Canyon Amphitheater is stunning with views that look otherworldly. Getting down into the canyon and hiking on the Queen's Garden Trail is something you must experience while you're there. It's an experience to get up close to the hoodoos after you've seen them from far away at the overlooks. If you're spending a day there, I highly recommend you get up for sunrise and stay till sunset. It's always worth it at Bryce. Park number 7 is Joshua Tree National Park. This is another choice that many people may not agree with, but Joshua Tree National Park is special to me as it's the closest park to where I live and I've spent a lot of time there over the years. I love the landscape with the mountains in the distance and the sea of Joshua Tree stretching out in front of you. Plus there's a lot of history to explore in the park and it has some of the best sunrises and sunsets you'll ever see. You really need to get off the main road and onto some of the hiking trails to truly experience this park though. Number 6 is Arches National Park. Arches is a favorite for me due to how different it is than any other national park. While the scenery itself is somewhat the same as other Utah parks, the hundreds of arches that dot the landscape is truly unique. I believe my dad and I saw over a dozen spectacular arches on our one day in the park, and many of these arches would be complete destinations on their own in other parks. Plus, add to that Delicate Arch, which is one of the most iconic natural views you can find in the United States. Visit this park in the spring or fall for fewer crowds and better weather. Starting my top 5, we have Zion National Park. I've spent a lot of time in Zion over the years, and the scenery is something that blows me away every time I visit. The two most popular trails in the park, the Narrows and Angel's Landing, are both two of the best trails in the national park system and incredible to do. But all around the park are great trails and stunning areas for photography, making it an easy top 5 pick for me. Number 4 is Carlsbad Caverns. I love exploring caves, and by far Carlsbad Caverns Great Room is the best cave experience I've ever had. Just a few of the hundreds of formations in here could be top attractions at pretty much any of the other show caves in the United States. Add to that the amazing hike that takes you into the cave's mouth and over a mile through the cave before you even get to the Great Room. It's a perfect lead up to what you'll see there. If you like caves even remotely, then you cannot miss this park. Number 3 is Denali National Park. I will preface this by saying that you have to be lucky to have an experience like this at Denali. The weather and the randomness of the wildlife sightings can make this an amazing or forgettable experience. For my dad and I though, it was a perfect experience as the 8-hour round-trip bus ride took us past countless animals and allowed us to see a stunning view of Denali Peak. Being able to see bears in the wild and the countless amazing landscapes are two things I'll never forget from my visit. I hope if you visit Denali you get to experience it like we did. For my second spot, I have Grand Canyon National Park. The Grand Canyon is one of those places you can never fully appreciate until you see it yourself. The canyon is so, dare I say, grand, and it is one of the best places to visit in the United States. It earns the top spot for me though because of the rim-to-rim hike we did. Being able to experience the canyon by hiking down one side and up the other gave me an appreciation I never would have had before. It's one of the adventure highlights of my life, and because of that I will always love this park. If you're gonna do rim-to-rim though, do it in 2 days. Can I get a drum roll please? But for my number one, it's Yosemite National Park. Yosemite is another park that I've been going to for my entire life, and the park has shown me natural beauty that I've never seen rivaled by anything outside of it. Just driving through Tunnel View for the first time is something I'm sure you'll never forget. Add to that Yosemite Falls, Half Dome, Firefall, and the Tioga Pass, just to name a few, and you have my favorite national park in the United States. So with that, my list is over until I complete the next 32. Let me know if you agree or disagree in the comments, and we will see you on the next video.